Hey people, get ready to crush everyday IELTS and CELPIP tests for all modules and make your dreams come true. I'm your motivator and I'll be guiding you through the test prep videos. So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or you'll be missing out on some serious preparation.
Part 1. You will hear a man contacting an employment insurance office about his claim. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 10. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 10. Thank you for calling Service Canada, Employment Insurance Division. My name is Sandra. How can I help you today? Hi Sandra, my name is Kevin Tran. I submitted my EI application about 3 weeks ago, and I still haven't received any response, so I'm calling to check on the status of my claim. I understand, Kevin. I'd be happy to look into that for you. Could you please provide me with your social insurance number so I can pull up your file? Of course. It's 527-463-891. Thank you. And for verification purposes, can you confirm your date of birth and the province where you were living when you applied? Sure. I was born March 14, 1988, and I was living in Ontario, specifically in Hamilton. Perfect, I've located your account. I can see here that your application has been placed on hold. There is a note indicating that we are still waiting for your record of employment, your ROE, from your most recent employer. Until we receive that document, we are unable to finalize your assessment or release any payments. Oh, that's surprising. My last day of work was July 18th, and I assumed my employer submitted everything automatically. What should I do? Should I contact them directly? You can absolutely follow up with your employer, but the fastest option is to upload the ROE yourself through your My Service Canada account online, that's at canada.ca. Once we receive it, processing typically takes 5 to 7 business days, and your first payment would be issued after that. Based on your insurable earnings on file, your weekly benefit amount has been calculated at $612. Okay, $612 per week, that's good to know. Is there anything else I should be doing in the meantime? I want to make sure I don't fall behind on anything. Yes, very important, please continue submitting your biweekly reports on time even while the application is still under review. Missing a report can cause further delays or interrupt payment once your claim is approved. Also, if your banking information in your account isn't already set up for direct deposit, I'd recommend adding that now so there are no delays when the payment is ready. Understood. I'll log in tonight and upload the ROE and double-check my direct deposit details. Thank you so much for clarifying everything, Sandra. I really appreciate your help. That is the end of Part 1. You now have some time to check your answers to Part 1. Part 2. You will hear a local counselor discussing infrastructure investment plans. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 20. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 20. Good morning, everyone. I'm Counselor Sandra Myers, and today, August 13th, 2026, I'm proud to present our municipality's most comprehensive infrastructure plan in recent memory. Our council has approved a total investment of $47 million to modernize essential services across the region. After careful analysis, road and bridge repairs will receive the largest share of this funding, as deteriorating pavement and aging overpasses represent our most urgent safety concern. Throughout the planning process, we consulted extensively with the Infrastructure Advisory Panel, a community body whose recommendations shaped nearly every major decision you'll hear today. 60% of this budget comes directly from federal grants, a remarkable outcome for our city. On the water side, the Riverside Heights neighborhood will be the first priority for water main upgrades, given its persistently high rate of pipe failures. Turning to transit, we will be adding 32 new electric buses to our fleet, and construction on the long-awaited transit hub will officially begin in spring 2027. Our cycling network will also grow significantly, with 45 kilometers of new protected lanes added citywide, with full completion targeted for late 2028. Above all, our primary goal remains simple: reducing commute times for residents and making daily life more connected for every household in this community. Thank you. That is the end of Part 2. You now have some time to check your answers to Part 2. Part 3. You will hear a group discussion between employees and their manager about flexible work-from-home policies. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 30. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 30. Thanks for coming in, everyone. We're here to finalize our updated work-from-home policy, which takes effect on September 1st. Great timing. Personally, I think 3 days remote and 2 days in office strikes the right balance for our team. I'd agree with that split. And if possible, I'd really like Fridays to always be a designated remote day. That's a reasonable request. We'll make Fridays a default remote day for all staff across the department. What about employees who actually prefer coming in 5 days a week? My colleague Dave, for instance, loves being at the office. They should absolutely keep that option. True flexibility means letting people choose what works best for them. Exactly right. Nobody will be required to stay home. The policy is entirely optional, not mandatory. That's an important distinction. Will staff need manager approval every single week, or is a one-time arrangement enough to get started? I'm hoping it's a one-time setup. Requiring weekly approvals would create a lot of unnecessary paperwork for everyone. Good news on that front: employees simply submit a preference form to HR by August 25th, and that covers the initial arrangement. And if project deadlines shift during a busy period, are we allowed to temporarily adjust our remote schedule? That kind of flexibility is really crucial, especially during those intense crunch periods near quarter end. Absolutely. Teams can formally revise their arrangements on a quarterly basis, with their direct manager's sign-off required each time. One more thing, will the company provide any support for home office costs, like internet bills or ergonomic equipment? That would genuinely help. My internet bill has actually gone up quite a bit since I started working remotely more often. We've approved a one-time home office stipend of $250 per employee. Full details will be sent out by email next week. That is the end of Part 3. You now have some time to check your answers to Part 3. Part 4. You will hear a lecture on urban planning and green infrastructure in Canada. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40. Welcome to Urban Futures. I'm Dr. Maya Chin, and today we're joined by Professor Daniel Rousseau from the University of Toronto to discuss green infrastructure in Canadian cities. Professor, what exactly do we mean by green infrastructure? Thanks, Maya. Green infrastructure refers to networks of natural and semi-natural systems, things like urban forests, green roofs, and bioswales, that deliver ecological services to city residents. In Canada, cities like Vancouver have been leaders since 2010 in adopting these frameworks. And what are the primary benefits that cities typically report? 3 stand out clearly: stormwater management, urban heat island reduction, and improved air quality. Research shows green roofs can reduce stormwater runoff by up to 60% under Canadian climate conditions. Critics often argue the upfront costs are simply prohibitive for municipalities. How do you respond to that? That's a common misconception. Long-term savings on municipal drainage infrastructure actually outweigh the initial investment within 15 years, according to a 2024 FCM report. The business case is genuinely strong. Which policy tools have proven most effective in driving adoption? Zoning bylaws with mandatory green coverage ratios have been the most impactful, particularly in Ontario and British Columbia, where enforcement mechanisms are well established. Is Indigenous ecological knowledge being meaningfully incorporated into these planning frameworks? Absolutely. Cities like Winnipeg are collaborating with First Nations communities to integrate traditional ecological knowledge into planning frameworks, which strengthens both cultural relevance and biodiversity outcomes. On a broader scale, the single greatest barrier to expanding these efforts nationwide remains funding fragmentation between federal, provincial, and municipal governments. That coordination gap must be resolved to truly scale green infrastructure across Canada. That is the end of Part 4. You now have some time to check your answers to Part 4. That is the end of the CELPIP listening test. You now have some time to transfer your answers to the answer sheet.
Hey people, how was your test? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or you'll be missing out on some serious fun. See you tomorrow!